All right, guys, how are we doing today? Steve Mingleco, Final Web Design, and in today's video, I want to discuss a topic that we've been getting a lot, and that's about pricing of websites. Some people are saying in the videos things are too low. Some people are saying that things are too high. So I want to get in, discuss this in more detail, website pricing. Let's get into it. Final Web Design, this is Steve. All right, so as I've kind of stated, I want to address this issue that I'm seeing. I wouldn't call it an issue, but I'm definitely calling it a concern that people have, or at least a bigger question that people have as far as our website pricing. So in some of the website sales videos, you might have heard me discuss different pricing, mostly for e-commerce projects. I know the one that's been sticking out a lot that I've actually had somebody call me off of WhatsApp that was looking for this answer. I had somebody leave a couple comments, but let's talk about the pricing at $5,500 for an e-commerce, because that seems to be the question. Now, I had one person leave a comment that actually said, $5,500, that's way too low. You know, e-commerce website should go for $15,000 starting. And I get that. I understand where he's coming from. There's a lot of work in building the e-commerce. I mean, there's a lot of variables. Does the company have a logo? Does the company have content? Do they have an old website to work off? Do they have all the inventory together? Those type of questions can really fluctuate the price of a website. So when I say an e-commerce website for $5,500 or $5,500, I am talking about the standard basic number I give a potential customer to kind of get the ball rolling. From there, if things change, if things fluctuate, the number can definitely change. But for the most part, it's around that price. Now, I had somebody recently just call me as well that said that they can only charge $500 for their e-commerce websites. And to me, $500 is not even worth your time. I mean, to even get the project organized, to get things kind of moving, that just seems very low ball. Now, to be honest, I believe when they called on my WhatsApp, they said that they were from Bangladesh. So I get it. Parts of the world like Asia, Eastern Europe, they can charge less for these websites because their cost of living in these countries is much less. Now, being in downtown Miami, Brickell, we obviously have very expensive rents, employment in the United States. I mean, if you want a good front-end, back-end developer, you're easily looking at six figures a year for a full-time position with a healthy amount of benefits. If you're trying to compete with these positions that, Microsoft offers or Google offers or Meta offers. So you have to put all of this into consideration. Now, the other person who wrote that they thought that $15,000 starting was a good price, I get that too. $15,000 is not a lot for an e-commerce website that goes out there and sells hundreds of thousands of dollars of inventory in a week or month or, just in general. And $15,000 to me, that number sounds good. I've heard even higher. I mean, if you actually look at, the healthcare.org website back in the day, or healthcare.gov, I think that was $500 million for that website. Now, don't get me wrong. I get it. That has a lot of, there's millions of Americans using it. There's a lot of logins and things like that. But for your standard small business, they're going to be on a budget. But if you go to a $500 price range, even if you're in an overseas, I think you're really cutting yourself short. And I almost wish that would stop, because it kind of makes the industry look scammy when people want to put out a real number like $5,500. Because a lot of those $500 projects, they don't get finished correctly. People just can't maintain an e-commerce build at that rate, because you've got to organize the projects. You've got to get the business information. You got to learn about that business to some degree. You got to do the inventory, the product descriptions, the images, the prices. You got to set up a payment gateway. You might have to have user logins and passwords and things like that. I mean, at the end of the day, that's just a lot of work. It takes a lot of knowledge and experience, and you're really selling yourself short. And I really wish that some of these companies over in India, Eastern Europe, Asia, that they would, kind of stop doing that, because it's lowballing the whole market. Now, we have a reputation in Miami. We are number one for Miami web design, Aventura web design, Hialeah web. I mean, we do SEO for 15 years on our website. That puts us in a position. We have a lot of reviews that people can go. They feel comfortable. If they need to come meet us, they can come meet us, and they know that we're an American company. So when I send a proposal for 5,500, that's just getting the conversation going. That's letting them know what we can do for them. And unfortunately, most people, small businesses can't afford that. But at the same time, if they can't, we don't really want to work with them because ultimately we're going to be in a position where they're going to run out of money or they're not going to have enough to pay the final installment. And we've seen those issues, and you just got to avoid them by setting up a higher price. Now, what we do by offering that at 5,500, we're not taking a ton of profit. I mean, once I divide it with the business partner and the developers, and there's a lot of taxes, there's a lot of things that go into it. We have to be in a position where we can continue to work with that client. We might move them into a managed hosting where we can charge a couple $100s a month to manage and continue to update their website as needed. We might get into digital marketing or SEO services with them. So there's additional things within the field we can continue to offer to keep that person once we've brought them in at that $5,500 price range. If we were to charge them $15,000, they might think that that's a highball number, and then the next thing we do, they're like, oh, that's too high. We get that, so we try to bring them in at that 5,500 number, and then continue to work with that client by giving them a good product, good customer service, being there for them with all of their web or technical needs. And that allows us to kind of make that 5,500 turn into an additional, 5,500 a year from that client going forward. So that's one of the big reasons. The other thing is we have a system in place. Like if you ever learned about the Ford factories back in the day in Detroit, he had the assembly line, and that was a way to kind of keep things at a low cost by continuing to build things as streamlined and smooth and repetitive as possible. So although we custom build everything, although we do custom designs, we have a process in place that once the project comes in, immediately we're starting on this hand, the design process, on this one, the staging environment, the WordPress or CMS platform setup, the whole development while we're working on the design with the client, so we can keep both the design and the development moving full steam ahead. And I think this is where a lot of people get caught up, is if you don't have that design signed off by the client initially, you're going to find yourself in a position where all of a sudden they're going to be like, oh, you built the website and we don't like it. And then you're in a position where now you're starting to take steps back. And that's all preventable if you get out there with the design, if you start the development at the same time so they can see things are moving, they know you're working on it. And ultimately, we try to keep things moving as fast and as smooth as possible because it only benefits us too. We don't want to be sitting on that other payment. We don't want to be sitting on moving into marketing with them. We don't want to be sitting on moving into a managed hosting, security updates and updates package with them going forward. So it only benefits us to have a system in place that's as smooth and as easy to work with as possible. And I think that's where a lot of web companies, especially people in their house or these small businesses, they just don't understand that if you don't have this process, you're going to find yourself in a nightmare. Things aren't going to work. You're never going to get your second payment. And it took us a lot of years to learn those things. We didn't come out day one and have all of these systems in place. We had to learn the hard way. We had to fail on a few websites. We had to get lowballed on a few websites where we didn't even profit, but that was 10 years ago. And now we can raise our prices because we have so many clients here. And if I wanted to start raising them to, 15,000, I don't think that's an unreasonable number for the quality of product we get. But we don't have to. We enjoy money, but we're not trying to take everything from people when we kind of can do it at a better rate and price and continue to work with them, build that trust. And I'm not saying 15,000 is too much. I'm just saying that's not what we do as a business, because I know a lot of small businesses, they do have issues getting their websites up and running. But when you think at $5,000, I mean, most of these storefronts or brick and mortars are more than that in rent. Most of just having one employee is almost that much a month in employment. So you really can't think that's too low. And I know if you get into government contracts, if you get into working with universities, if you get into working with big corporations or healthcare, I mean, they're building websites that are easily in the six figures, if not more. And that's just because that's the cost of an American developer. I mean, if you have a team of developers, you're paying them each six figures a year, you have to explain that to the client. And that's kind of how we do. So, I mean, I hope that kind of answers the pricing question that people have, because prices are going to change, things are going to change, inflation, all that stuff is happening. But if you have the system in place, I think you can find yourself in a good number and then try to retain that client going forward. But ultimately, care about your customer. And that's something that's really hard to find sometimes in this industry, because I hear horror stories that, oh, the guy disappeared, or they're not getting back to us. Oh, I don't have my logins or passwords. And now the website is, locked up, or the domain name, which is an even worse situation. So just work with that. I hope that helps explain as best as possible kind of the pricing number and how we come to it and what you can do to find that good number for yourself and your firm, or just when you're out buying a website, what to expect. So guys, with that, a like, a subscribe, that helps, and we will catch you in the next one.